Ma'am, you need to calm down. I can't. It burns. Please, someone help me. The cabin lights hummed softly, but the moment felt blistering bright. Passengers froze, hands halfway to seatbelts, whispers cutting through recycled air. 32-year-old Tiana Lewis, 6 months pregnant, pressed trembling fingers against her abdomen. Her dress clung wet to her skin. Boiling coffee, freshly poured and without warning, streamed down her side and over her belly, its angry heat already reddening skin. Flight attendants, she gasped, voice cracking. Please, my baby. A few rows back, a man lowered his newspaper, eyes sharp beneath silver brows. No one knew his name yet. No one knew what power sat quietly in seat 14C. The attendant who spilled the drink, Kara Brooks, stood stiff, a pot still in her shaking hand. It was an accident, she stammered. But you can't make a scene like this. You're upsetting passengers. Tiana blinked at her, eyes wide, hurt, disbelieving. A woman across the aisle whispered, someone needs to do something. But nothing moved. No call button lit. No supervisor walked forward. Only the slow, dreadful drip of coffee across Tiana's armrest. Another attendant approached, her tone clipped, professional to the point of cold. We'll get you napkins and a seatbelt extender, she said. No apology. No urgency. Tiana wasn't loud. She wasn't demanding. She only clutched her belly and whispered, It burns. Please. The aircraft engines roared outside, indifferent. Then movement. The man with the silver brows stood. Calm. Certain. His blazer immaculate, wedding band clicking softly against the metal handle of the seat as he stepped into the aisle. Every nearby head turned. He looked at Tiana first, not the attendants. His voice, when it came, sounded steady enough to land a plane. This woman needs medical assistance immediately, he said, and she needs to be treated with respect. Kara drew in a breath, defensive. Sir, I'm sorry you feel that way, but you don't make decisions here. The man raised one eyebrow. I steady on hers. Are you sure about that? The pilot door remained closed. The intercom silent. But the cabin, the whole plane, seemed to hold one long breath. Enjoying this? Tap subscribe for tomorrow's story. 2 hours earlier, Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, late morning. The airport speakers chimed over and over, a soft echo that made everything blur. Tiana Lewis shifted her weight from one foot to the other in the boarding line, one hand on her lower back, the other wrapped around the handle of a worn carry-on. Just you and me, little one, she murmured, rubbing the side of her belly through her dress. Quick flight. Then we meet your grandma. Her phone buzzed. She tapped accept. Hey, Marcus. Her husband's voice crackled through. You at the gate, babe? Boarding now, Tiana said. They changed it again. But I found it. You drinking water. You promised the doctor. She smiled in spite of herself. Yes, sir. I've had 2 bottles already. I just want to get off my feet. Marcus lowered his voice. You sure you don't want me flying with you next time? We can't afford that, she said gently. You know that. And I'm fine. It's a short flight. Atlanta, then Mom's picking me up. He sighed. If anything feels wrong, anything, you tell somebody. Don't try to be polite, Tiana, on a plane. You hear me? His words hung there. Tiana thought the last time she flew alone, when an agent had questioned her about her own ticket twice, then waved the man behind her right through. How the attendant had smiled right past her, as if she were invisible. I hear you, she said. This time will be different. The gate agent scanned her boarding pass. Good morning, Ms. Lewis. Straight ahead and to your right. The small courtesy warned her more than the coffee smell drifting from the nearby kiosk. Inside the plane, the air felt cooler, almost dry. The low hum of the vents wrapped everything in a constant soft noise. Tiana shuffled down the aisle, counting rows. Her seat, 12B. Middle. She bit her lip. It's okay, she told herself. Just a few hours. A woman in the window seat, maybe in her 50s, smiled up at her. You need help with that, honey? Tiana hesitated. If you don't mind. The woman stood. Name's Ellen. I've got 2 grandbabies. I know that travel while pregnant walk. They laughed together, the sound light and brief. Ellen lifted the bag, slid it overhead with surprising strength, and patted the empty seat. As Tiana buckled in, an attendant moved down the aisle. It was Kara Brooks, her blonde hair tightly coiled into a bun, uniform pressed, name badge shining under the overhead lights. She gave a neutral smile to each passenger, a polite, almost practiced distance in her eyes. "Let me know if you need a belt extender," Kara said as she passed Tiana, voice flat, already looking toward the next row. "I'm okay, thank you," Tiana replied. Kara didn't look back. Ellen leaned over. "Don't mind her. Some of them forget they're dealing with people, not luggage." Tiana smiled faintly, but Marcus's words echoed. "Don't try to be polite, Tiana, on a plane." The cabin filled. The overhead bins clicked shut. In row 14, a man with silver hair in a navy blazer placed a leather briefcase under the seat in front of him and sat with the ease of someone who had flown his whole life. He watched the attendants without really looking at them, eyes lingering a second longer on how they moved, how they spoke, where they cut corners and where they didn't. When the safety demo started, Tiana touched her belly again. A small kick answered her. "See," she whispered. "Everything's going to be fine." She believed it. Right up until the seatbelt sign dinged off, the cart began to roll, and the smell of fresh, too-hot coffee spilled into the air. The drink cart rattled softly as it approached row 12, metal wheels bumping over the faint ridge where carpet met galley flooring. Tiana relaxed against the headrest, eyes closed for a brief moment, letting herself imagine Atlanta, her mother's arms, the smell of peach cobbler cooling on the counter. "Coffee or juice?" Kara asked the passenger in 11A. Her tone was brisk, efficient, almost rushed. Another attendant, Megan Torres, followed behind her, restocking creamers and stirring sticks. Megan smiled easily, exchanging pleasantries. Kara did not. Tiana opened her eyes as the cart rolled beside her. "Coffee, please," she said, voice gentle. Her throat felt dry, and she thought the warmth might ease her nerves. "Black?" Kara asked. "Yes, thank you." Kara reached for the silver pot, steam rising from its spout. She tilted it too fast, too confident, and her fingers slipped just slightly on the handle. Ellen saw it first. "Careful." But the warning was half a second too late. The pot tipped. A stream of scalding coffee surged forward, splashing Tiana's arm, her dress, her stomach. The heat hit like fire. Tiana's breath tore from her chest in a broken gasp, hands flying to her belly. The cabin went still. Kara froze, pot still hovering midair. "Oh, I didn't mean," her voice faltered, then sharpened. "You need to calm down. It was an accident." Megan reached out, alarmed. "Kara, get towels." "No." But Kara stayed rooted, eyes darting to watching passengers. "She's overreacting," she whispered, too close to Tiana. "We can't have a disturbance." Tiana blinked through tears. "My baby, please, it burns." "It burns." Ellen was already unbuckling. "She needs medical help. Cooling compresses, anything." "Don't just stand there." Kara hesitated, jaw tight, as though the fear of reprimand weighed heavier than the woman burning in front of her. Passengers murmured. One pressed a call button. Another searched for a crew member. But help moved slowly, too slowly. Tiana's vision swam. Her skin throbbed, deep and pulsing. She tried to breathe through it. She remembered Marcus's voice. "Say something. Don't shrink." "I need first aid," she whispered. "Please." Megan signaled toward the front. "Captain should know. We may need to divert." Kara's head snapped toward her. "We're not diverting for coffee." "She's fine. It's cosmetic." Ellen's voice rose, calm but edged with steel. "Her skin is blistering. She's pregnant. Do not minimize this." The aisle behind them rustled. Someone stood, slow, deliberate. Seat 14C. The man with silver hair walked forward, one steady step at a time. He looked at Kara first, as though assessing her training, her choices. Then he turned to Tiana. "Ma'am," he said softly, "you're hurt." No one here should dismiss that. Tiana blinked up at him, pain and relief blurring. Ellen exhaled sharply. Finally, someone says it. Kara straightened, defensive. "Sir, please take your seat. We have protocol." He held her gaze. "Good. Then we'll follow it. Medical needs take priority." Megan nodded quickly, ready to respond. But Kara leaned in, a whisper tight with authority she did not fully hold. "Sir, you don't understand this job. We make decisions up here." The man didn't move, didn't flinch. He simply asked, voice calm as leveled wings in turbulence, "Are you certain you're the one in charge of this plane?" Passengers leaned in, breath held. Something was shifting. The question wasn't loud, but was enough to crack the moment open. The engines hummed like distant thunder, steady, powerful, but indifferent. In row 12, Tiana tried to steady her breathing. Her dress clung damp against tender skin, and every heartbeat felt like a spark blooming beneath her ribs. Ellen held her hand tightly, thumb tracing small circles across trembling knuckles. The silver-haired man didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Passengers watched him with the same held breath one gives a man who knows exactly what he's stepping into. Megan, eyes wide with concern, returned with a stack of cold compresses wrapped in plastic. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry this happened to you," she whispered, placing one gently on Tiana's arm. "We'll cool it slowly, don't press too hard." Tiana flinched, but nodded. "Thank you." For the first time since the spill, comfort reached her. But Kara stood rigid, hands clasped behind her back, jaw locked. "Sir," she told a man, "I'm responsible for cabin decisions. You need to sit." Her tone carried authority, but not confidence. He didn't budge. Instead, he reached slowly into his jacket. Not abrupt, not searching, simply certain. Fingers brushed fabric, produced a small black leather business card holder, polished, worn only at the corners from years of handling. He didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, he spoke to the watching passengers, a small crowd gathering silently around row 12. The FAA prioritizes passenger safety. A medical incident involving burns, especially to a pregnant woman, is not cosmetic. It warrants response, documentation, and care. Kara flushed. "You don't quote regulations to me." He met her gaze, steady, unblinking. "I don't need to quote them. I wrote several." Gasps fluttered through the aisle like wind shifting through leaves. Ellen stared. Megan's eyes widened further. Even Tiana, in pain, felt something tilt inside her, fear giving way to a fragile thread of hope. But the man still had not given his name. The intercom crackled overhead, abrupt and sharp. "Flight deck to cabin crew," the captain's voice said. "Status on the medical call." Megan reached for the handset. Kara blocked her with one sharp step. "We have no emergency. No diversion necessary." Passengers stiffened. Tiana's breath caught, cold with disbelief. The compress pressed against her skin, but the fire beneath it roared. The man inhaled slowly, as though deciding whether to speak as a stranger or as something more. He lifted the card holder, opened it. Inside, one embossed card gleamed. Not a manager. Not a supervisor. Not crew. Chairman and interim owner, Monarch Atlantic Airlines Jonathan Hale. Tiana's pulse stumbled. Ellen's jaw parted in stunned silence. Megan nearly dropped the compress wrapper. Even Kara took half a step back. Jonathan Hale slid the card into Kara's shaking hand, voice still level, never heated, never cruel. "You are correct," he said. "Decisions are made here. But you have made one that endangers a passenger." Kara swallowed hard. "I didn't know." "I didn't need you to know," he replied. "I needed you to care." The cabin felt smaller now, everyone leaning closer, waiting for consequence. Jonathan turned to Tiana, lowering himself to eye level. "Ma'am, you deserve safety. You deserve respect. And you will have both." He stood. "Captain," he called clearly toward the intercom, "medical priority. Prepare to divert and arrange paramedics on landing." The cabin hushed to a single heartbeat. Choices had shifted. Authority had changed hands. And Kara Brooks, once certain, now shaking, stood at the center of it. The plane didn't bank or tilt yet, but everyone could feel the change, like the moment just before a storm breaks, when the air itself waits. Kara stood frozen, Jonathan Hale's business card still trembling between her fingers. Authority she once held so tightly had slipped like sand through an open palm. Megan stepped forward, voice firm for the first time. "I'll notify the captain we're diverting." But Kara caught her sleeve. "No, we'll lose schedule integrity. We'll be late into Atlanta. We have procedures." Jonathan's tone remained even. "Procedures exist to protect passengers, not timetables." Tiana looked up at him, sweat shining on her skin. The burn throbbed deep and angry beneath the compress, and fear pulsed with every breath, not just for herself, but for the one small life beneath her heartbeat. A life she and Marcus had prayed for, cried for, after years of loss. The stakes were not theoretical. Ellen squeezed her hand. You're doing so well, sweetheart. Just breathe slow. Help is coming. Tiana nodded, swallowing back a wave of pain that tightened across her belly like a pulled wire. Jonathan glanced toward the front. Please, he told Megan, softer now. Go. She went. Kara's composure cracked. You don't understand, she said, voice lower, pleading almost. If we divert, if this is logged. My record, I've worked 10 years for this position. Jonathan didn't look cruel, only disappointed. 10 years should have taught you compassion. Passengers murmured agreement. A man in row 10 called out gently, She's pregnant, ma'am. Skin injury like that can cause shock. Another woman added, My sister burned herself with boiling tea once. It scarred. She fainted. Evidence piled without anger, just truth. Kara's shoulders tightened. Shame, defensiveness, fear, none of them made room for humility. Her voice rose just enough to shake. Everyone is ganging up on me. I didn't mean harm. It was an accident. She's making this worse by panicking. The cabin went still. Ellen leaned forward, voice low but sharp as glass. She is in pain, not performing. Kara blinked fast, lashes wet, and for a moment, just one, Tiana thought she might apologize. But instead, Kara lifted her chin. If we divert and she's fine, I lose everything for nothing. Jonathan exhaled slowly. This isn't about loss, it's about accountability. And passengers' well-being outranks schedules and pride. Tiana's vision blurred with heat behind her eyes. She whispered, barely audible, I just want my baby safe. That soft plea broke something open. If not for Kara, then for the rest of the cabin. 3 passengers stood, unprompted. We stand with her, one said. She needs help now, said another. This isn't optional, said the third. It wasn't revolt, just collective humanity. Kara backed away, eyes flicking from one face to another like she was trapped. And for the first time, the certainty she wore like armor slipped enough for doubt to show. Megan returned from the front moments later, breath quick. Captain asked for details, she said. He needs confirmation. Jonathan nodded. He'll have it. Then he looked down at Tiana, really looked. We're getting you help, he said. But you tell me what you need first. Tiana swallowed, voice unsteady. I need to know my baby is okay. Jonathan held her gaze, steady and unwavering. Then we won't land late. We'll land safe. And with those words, the balance of power shifted once more. The cockpit door opened, just a crack rare mid-flight, enough to show a sliver of uniform and a captain's eyes sharp with concern. The captain's baritone carried through the small opening. Mr. Hale, is this an official request to divert? Jonathan didn't turn to the audience. He faced the door instead, voice calm, unwavering. Yes, he said. Passenger injury. High risk. Immediate medical landing. There it was. A decision large enough to move a plane through a sky. The door closed again, firm, decisive. A moment later, the overhead chime sounded. The seatbelt sign blinked on. The cabin shivered, not from turbulence, but from a shift in fate. The plane began a slow, banking turn. Somewhere ahead, a runway waited. Tiana's lungs loosened, not with relief, not fully, but with something close. The pain still pulsed, skin raw beneath the cooling compress, but now someone was fighting for her child, for her existence in that narrow aisle of strangers. Megan knelt beside her, voice gentler than before. I'm calling paramedics ahead. Do you have any allergies? Any complications we need to know? Tiana shook her head. No allergies. But I had a miscarriage 2 years ago. Her voice broke on the admission. We're high risk. Ellen's hand tightened over hers, warm and steady. Jonathan's expression changed, not pity, but respect. Understanding. A private gravity settled over him. The twist, however, had only begun to unfold. Because while most of the cabin exhaled, grateful for leadership, Kara stood rigid a few feet away, face pale, eyes glassed in fear and something deeper. Her voice, when it returned, was barely more than breath. You don't know what happens if this diversion becomes official, she said. They track injuries. They investigate. Suspension is automatic when burns are involved. I'll be grounded, maybe fired. I have a daughter. I'm a single parent. She wasn't defiant anymore. She was afraid. Jonathan regarded her quietly, the weight of her truth sinking. His authority didn't erase her humanity. He saw it. Everyone did. But the injury still sat, steaming in memory on Tiana's skin. Megan whispered, "Kara, you should apologize." A long silence. Passengers watched. Kara opened her mouth, closed it. Tears swelled at the edges of her eyes. She looked at Tiana, but her voice faltered. "I'm sorry," she managed. "I panicked. I didn't want to look incompetent. I should have helped you first." Tiana gazed at her, exhausted, hurting, heart torn between justice and empathy. She didn't speak. But Jonathan did. "Accountability isn't the end of your career, Ms. Brooks," he said quietly. "How you respond in this moment will define what you become after it." Kara blinked. Jonathan turned to Megan. "Document the incident. Full report. Medical care on landing. Passenger follow-through for treatment costs." Then he did something unexpected. He took out his pen, signed the back of his business card, and handed it to Kara. "If you want training, real training in crisis response, I'll sponsor it. But only if you earn it with honesty and repair." Gasps rippled. Not outrage, astonishment. He wasn't just the man with power. He was the man willing to use it to rebuild, not crush. Tiana watched him, eyes wet. Why help her too? Jonathan lowered himself again, gaze level. "Because dignity isn't a limited resource," he said softly. "We protect it for everyone, or we lose it ourselves." The plane descended through clouds, runway lights rising to meet them. 2 lives hung in that moment, one unborn, one afraid of losing everything. And Jonathan Hale had just rewritten the trajectory of both. The descent felt long, the engines low and steady like a heartbeat trying not to break. A hush covered the cabin, not silence, but reverence. People leaned forward as if physical closeness might will the plane to the ground faster, might carry Tiana safely into waiting arms of help. Jonathan remained beside her the entire approach, one hand steadying the seat back, the other near, but never touching, ready if she swayed. Kara stood several feet away, small as a shadow, but still present. Megan worked like someone determined to rebuild trust, handing Tiana sips of cool water, checking her skin's color, her breathing, her orientation. "Descent through 10,000 feet, the captain announced. "Cabin crew, prepare for landing." The final moments came fast then. Landing gear groaning open, runway rushing up, wheels kissing asphalt in a firm but controlled roll. The plane slowed, engines reversing with a rising howl, then calmed into a taxi. Applause fluttered but didn't fully form. Too much weight still held the moment. A flight attendant, beyond Kara and Megan, picked up the PA. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have elected to divert for a medical priority. Paramedics will meet us immediately. Please remain seated until directed." Tiana closed her eyes. Relief tasted like air after a held breath. But the second twist unfolded not in the aisle, not in the cockpit, but within Tiana. Because as the plane slowed, as help drew close, as the crisis found its shape, she suddenly felt a tightening low in her abdomen. Not burn, not fear. A contraction. Small, but unmistakable. Her eyes opened wide. She grabbed Ellen's hand. Something changed. Her voice trembled. "It hurts differently now." Ellen inhaled sharply. "Baby, we need paramedics fast." Jonathan saw it instantly. Something new behind her eyes, a pain not linked to the burn. He signaled to Megan with urgency he hadn't shown before. "Call it in," he said. "Possible preterm contractions." Pain tightened again, sharper, deeper. Tiana's breath stuttered. No, it's too soon. Not now. The burn mattered, yes. But this was life-tipping, future collapsing inward like a closing fist. The plane stopped short of the gate. Ambulances waited on the tarmac. Lights steady but no sirens. An emergency held in quiet readiness. Jonathan spoke gently, firmly. "Tiana, look at me." She did barely. "You are not alone. You have help waiting. And we'll walk you off this plane with dignity, not panic." Her breathing steadied by one fragile measure. Then the cabin door opened. Hot Dallas air swept in, dry, bright, real. 2 paramedics boarded quickly, one kneeling beside her to assess the burn, the other counting her pulse, timing her breaths. Professional, swift, calm. "We need her to the ambulance now," one said. "Possible stress-induced labor. Fetal heart monitoring required immediately." Jonathan nodded once. Permission, authority, protection. But before they transferred her to the stretcher, something unexpected happened. Kara stepped forward. Not out of protocol. Out of humanity. "I'll walk with her," she whispered. "If she'll let me." The cabin held its breath again. Tiana stared at her. This woman who had caused pain, pushed back, feared consequences, then finally apologized. A woman trying to become better in real time. Tiana managed a weak nod. "Yes," she breathed. "Come." And just like that, two women who began as strangers in conflict walked toward the plane doors side by side. One burned, one humbled. Both changed. Jonathan followed a step behind, steady as a shadow. The runway waited. Accountability waited. Healing waited. And the next chapter, where justice meets grace, was about to begin. The ambulance doors closed, sealing away the roar of jet engines and the murmuring crowd of passengers who watched from the terminal windows. Inside, monitors beeped steadily. A fetal Doppler traced soft rhythmic sound, a heart small and strong. Relief hit Tiana like warm rain. Tears rolled down her face, not from pain now, but from sheer release. The medic adjusting her force smiled gently. "Baby's heartbeat is stable. You're contracting lightly, but we're treating you for stress and burn trauma. We think we can prevent early labor with observation." The news nearly buckled her. Marcus's face flashed across her mind, his hand pressed to the ultrasound screen just weeks earlier, eyes shining with hope. She whispered his name like prayer. Kara sat in the jump seat within the ambulance, shoulders bowed, hands clasped so tightly the knuckles paled. She had asked to come. They had allowed it. But she hadn't spoken since. Jonathan remained standing, hand braced on a rail to steady himself as the ambulance bounced through traffic lights toward Dallas Medical Center. His presence filled the small space, not loud, not imposing, only unwavering. When the vehicle halted at the ER bay, a team was already waiting. Tiana was transferred to a treatment bed, monitors attached with swift hands, compresses refreshed, temperature logged. A nurse checked fetal rhythm again. The sound pulsed like a promise. Stable. Still stable. Kara approached slowly. "Tiana," her voice broke. "I want to cover your medical costs. All of them, if they'll let me. I know I caused this. I know sorry isn't enough, but I want to try to make it right. Not because I'm afraid for my job." She pressed a fist to her chest. "Because I need to be better than who I was at 30,000 feet. Tiana looked at her, exhausted but clear-eyed. The burn still throbbed, but her heart no longer trembled. She saw more than a mistake. She saw a woman learning, breaking open, reforming. Before she could speak, Jonathan stepped in, not interrupting, but supporting. "There will be an internal review," he said calmly. "Protocol demands it. But I will testify to your willingness to learn. I will not let one moment erase a decade if you step forward with humility and truth." Kara covered her mouth, tears falling freely. "But the first voice that matters," Jonathan added gently, "is hers." Tiana exhaled. "I accept your apology," she said, voice soft but firm. "And I believe you mean to do better. But growth is earned, not given. Walk with me through recovery, and then walk with others so this doesn't happen again." Kara nodded, sobbing as though something heavy had finally been released. Jonathan moved closer to Tiana's bedside. "You will not pay a cent," he told her. "The airline will handle all medical care, follow-up, maternity monitoring, travel changes, everything. And more than that, we are implementing new training procedures for in-flight medical response and bias awareness." Tiana swallowed. Slowly, painfully, beautifully, power tilted back to where it belonged. Not in a boardroom. Not in a title. But in the quiet dignity of a woman who had been seen. The fetal heart monitor kept beating, steady, strong, undeniable. Ellen arrived later with overnight clothes. Megan checked in twice more. Kara submitted herself to the review panel. And Jonathan stayed until he knew Tiana was not just safe, but respected. Then he made one final request. "May I call your husband? He deserves to hear your voice." Tiana nodded, eyes shining. Justice had begun. But more remained: recovery, reform, forgiveness. And the story was far from done. Marcus arrived just past midnight, eyes red, shirt rumpled, breath uneven from a run across polished hospital floors. When he reached Tiana's room, he didn't speak right away. He just cupped her face with both hands, tears tracing the lines of a man who had prayed without stopping. "You're here," she breathed. "I never left you," he said, voice thick. "Not for a second." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tips of her fingers where 4 tapes stretched delicate and pale. His touch trembled, not in fear now, but in overwhelming relief. The fetal monitor beeped steadily beside them, proof of life and sound. Jonathan stood at a respectful distance, hands folded in front of him. He waited until Marcus and Tiana had settled into one another's presence before stepping forward. "Sir," he said quietly, "your wife experienced a burn from a service accident in flight. We diverted immediately, and she has been under continuous care. The baby is stable." Marcus nodded, voice steady but lined in steel. "Thank you for stepping in. She told me what you did." Jonathan shook his head softly. "I only did what was right. Courage belonged to your wife." He laid a folder on the bedside table. Inside were documents, full coverage of medical care, follow-up appointments, maternal monitoring through delivery, compensated travel for both parents, and a formal apology letter drafted for Tiana. But the last page was different. A new training initiative signed and approved, passenger dignity and medical response reform, effective immediately across the airline. Crew required to receive renewed instruction in empathy-driven assistance, bias awareness, and emergency protocol. Tiana read the title through blur of tired eyes. Her voice came slow but sure. "This could protect someone else. That," Jonathan said, "is our responsibility." The door opened again gently. Kara stepped inside, not dressed in uniform now, but in plain clothes, hands clasped in front of her. The band around her wrist held a visitor tag. She approached cautiously. "I know I'm on leave during the investigation," she said. "I accept that. But I asked to take the training first. I want to help build it. And Tiana, if you'll allow, I'd like to speak to future crews with you. About what happened. About what it means to really see someone." The offer did not erase pain, but it planted change. Tiana looked to Marcus. He covered her hand with his own. In their silence, understanding settled like a warm blanket across aching skin. Healing was bigger than anger, bigger than shame, bigger even than the sky that carried them into crisis. Tiana met Kara's eyes, a woman trying with trembling sincerity to become better than her worst moment. "Yes," she whispered. "We'll do it together." Kara exhaled a sob of gratitude. Jonathan stepped back, giving space for the moment to breathe. In his gaze, there was the quiet satisfaction of a leader who knew reform was beginning not in policy, but in people. Marcus bent to kiss Tiana's belly, speaking to the life inside. "You're safe, little one," he said. "Your mother made sure of that." Outside the window, dawn began its slow rise across Dallas, pink light stretching across horizon like promise. A painful journey had become a turning point. Not just for one woman, not just for one crew, but for an entire system learning to value dignity above convenience. And Tiana, weary but unbroken, finally slept, hand in her husband's, future restored. 6 months later, Atlanta, Georgia. The waiting room smelled faintly of lemon polish and newborn powder. Spring light spilled through tall windows, warming pale blue walls and softening the world into something gentle. A mobile of silver stars turned slowly above a bassinet, shimmering, rhythmic, like calm waves across the ceiling. In the rocking chair sat Tiana Lewis. Her daughter pressed her chest, tiny breath warm against her skin. The burn scar on her abdomen was small now, a pale crescent barely visible, but she traced it sometimes with quiet reverence. A reminder. Proof of survival. She hummed while rocking, eyes half closed. The baby's palm curled around her finger like new hope. The monitor beside them blinked steady, though no medical alarm sounded anymore. Just standard pediatric checks and peace. Marcus entered quietly with 2 steaming cups of tea, eyes softened by fatherhood's wonder. He leaned down, kissed both foreheads. "She's out like a light," he whispered. "Her heartbeat's the best sound in the world," Tiana replied. He handed her a cup. "Second best sound," he corrected softly. "First was when they told us she was okay." They sat together in that quiet joy, just a family breathing. A knock sounded gently at the door. Jonathan Hale stood in the frame. No suit today, just a simple shirt, sleeves rolled, expression warm. His silver hair caught sunlight like frost on riverbank stone. In his hands, he carried something small. Gift. May I come in? He asked. Always, Tiana smiled. Jonathan stepped closer and set the box on the bedside table. Inside lay a brass cabin bell, a miniature model of the kind once rung to signal first-class service decades ago. Smooth, weighted, reflective. I found it in an old storage archive, Jonathan said. It reminded me of that flight, of the moment dignity was demanded rather than deferred. Tiana lifted the bell, cool metal warming slowly in her palm. It reminds me of our daughter, she said quietly, of how every life deserves to be seen. Jonathan nodded. The Passenger Dignity Initiative passed its first evaluation last week, he told them. Complaint rates are down. Response time to medical needs is faster. And we implemented a new seatbelt rule. Flight attendants must check visually, not selectively. No assumptions allowed. Marcus smiled. Real change. System change, Jonathan corrected gently. Born from one moment that could have ended in silence. A second knock came, softer, hesitant. Kara Brooks stood there, dressed neatly, hair down for once, hands clasped but not shaking. Around her neck hung an ID badge with new designation. Lead Instructor, Compassion and Crisis Response Training. She approached with quiet reverence. Tiana, Kara said, voice steady, I came to thank you for forgiving me, for letting me grow instead of letting me fall. Tiana reached out and clasped her hand. You earned it, she said. Kara exhaled, emotion brimming but held with grace. She looked at the baby, tiny, breathing, alive, and her smile trembled with meaning. I carry your story into every training session, Kara told her. We don't serve coffee first anymore. We serve humanity. Outside, magnolia blossoms opened along the hospital walk, sunlight catching in their petals like new beginnings. Tiana rocked her child, tracing the bell's warm brass curve with gentle fingers. She wasn't defined by what happened to her. She was defined by what she did with it. Burn to healing. Fear to strength. Accident to transformation. And as her daughter stirred softly, Tiana whispered, You were born into a world a little kinder than before. The bell gleamed, symbol once of luxury, now of dignity. The story had not ended in pain. Ended in growth. Ended in grace. Andy, thanks for watching.